Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is finally out in theaters, so that means we now have 11 Spider-Man movies, so let's rank them all. Hello everybody, my name is Jesse, and welcome to Film Talks, the channel where I love to talk about all things movies and TV. We now have 11 Spider-Man movies, live action and animated, so today I'm going to rank all of the Spider-Man films from the least best to the best. Coming in last place for me is Spider-Man Far From Home. Now don't take this to mean that I don't like this movie. I actually really enjoy this movie. It's just one that I don't really rewatch that often, and it's not one that I really have the urge to rewatch that often. I think this may actually be the Spider-Man film that I've rewatched the least, simply because I just don't go back to it that often. The whole Elemental plotline with Mysterio, I was never really fully sold on it, never super interested in it. The whole story of this movie, other than Mysterio, really hasn't ever fully interested me, and I think it's interesting that they tried bringing Spider-Man out of somewhere other than New York, but I just think it's kind of weird to see Spider-Man somewhere other than... I think specifically for the character of Spider-Man and how they portray New York City in some of these Spider-Man movies, I just think New York City is the most important place for Spider-Man to be, and that's just where Spider-Man should be, I think. I don't love the idea of Spider-Man being somewhere else other than New York. That's not to say that this film didn't have great stuff. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains that we've ever gotten, and he does a fantastic job in the role. You can tell that Jake Gyllenhaal has an absolute blast playing the character, and it's so fun to watch. And Mysterio is a really good villain in this movie. He taunts Peter, and he makes Peter question reality to the point where he doesn't even know what's real and what's not. In this movie, Peter is still struggling with grieving and getting over the death of Tony from Endgame, and Mysterio uses that to his advantage, and he uses that against Peter to further trick him and just absolutely mess with his mind. So this movie has great stuff. The Mysterio illusion sequences are all fantastic, and they all look awesome. This movie has some good stuff to offer. It's just not my favorite. Coming in number 9 for me is Spider-Man 3. This is one of those movies where I really enjoy it, and I actually go back to it quite often because it's by far the least great. It's my least favorite of the Raimi trilogy, but it is really enjoyable because the good things about this movie really outweigh the bad, in my opinion. Now, I do have some issues with this movie. I think the movie is a little bit too messy. There's too many plot lines. Just within the first 20 or 30 minutes, there's so many different plot lines being set up. Flint Marko turning into Sandman. We get the Venom symbiote crashing down on Earth. Harry becomes New Goblin and gets his amnesia from his fight with Peter. So there's all sorts of different plot lines being set up way too early in this movie. So I think the movie just gets a little bit too messy. And Sam Raimi himself said that he didn't want Venom to be in the movie, but producers pushed it, so Venom was in this movie, but you can tell that it was really forced. I think Topher Grace is a weird choice to pick for Eddie Brock, and the character just wasn't great in this movie. I don't like how they did Venom in this movie at all, and you can tell that Sam Raimi didn't either. So I just think there are issues with this movie, but the good is also really good. There's some great moments in this movie. I think Flint Marko, when he first rises up out of the pit as Sandman, but he's not quite in human form yet. He like reaches out to grab the necklace, but he can't because the sand just pushes right through it. The music and the visuals, I think, all make that scene really, really good, and it's a fantastic scene that I love. The score is great in this movie. The black suit theme is probably one of my favorite scores in all Spider-Man movies. The black suit looks awesome and is one of my favorite Spider-Man suits in all the movies. And of course, the greatest thing to come out of this movie is all of the memes that we got with Bully Maguire and Tobey Maguire in the black suit and everything. So there is some good, there's some bad. Overall, I think this is a really enjoyable film. It just happens to be lower on my list. Coming in number 8 for me is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think this is the most overhated Spider-Man movie by a mile, and I think this is one of those movies where people like to take all of the bad stuff about this movie, which in my opinion really isn't all super bad at all. They take the less good parts of this movie, the bad stuff of this movie, and really emphasize it to the point where people will put it at the bottom of their list just because Green Goblin isn't good, or Rhino is bad. Just like they take all the bad stuff and emphasize it, so they overlook all of the great stuff that this movie has to offer. I have always loved this movie for all the great stuff that it has to offer, and always appreciated for that. Andrew Garfield is my favorite interpretation of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He has a blast in the role, you can tell. He does a phenomenal job. He's really good with quips and jokes. This movie has some really great web-slinging action, some of the best in all the Spider-Man movies. And, of course, the one thing that almost everybody agrees on is the fantastic romance between Peter and Gwen Stacy in this movie. Gwen Stacy, played by Emma Stone, is my favorite live-action love interest of Spider-Man. Probably my favorite love interest in all the movies, not just live-action. Their chemistry is really great, and their relationship feels believable in these movies, and that's what I love about it. And you see this more in the first film, but they're kind of awkward, you know, they both have crushes on each other, but they don't really want to fully commit because they don't know if the other likes it. It's believable. Whereas other relationships, like Tobey Maguire and Kristen Dunst, I'll get to that in a minute, is less believable because it doesn't really have that charm to it. So there's a lot of great stuff in TASM 2. I also love the suit with the more vibrant red and blue and the big white eyes. It's great. So there's a lot of good stuff in this movie, and I've always loved it. Number 7 for me is Spider-Man Homecoming. This is also a Spider-Man movie that I don't really rewatch that often, just simply because I don't really have the urge to rewatch it a lot, similar to Far From Home. Sometimes I actually find this movie a bit boring in parts. It just kind of drags a little bit, I think, sometimes. But one thing I do think is good about this movie, among many, is it's not necessarily trying to be the best Spider-Man movie. It's just trying to be a fun Spider-Man movie about a high schooler trying to enjoy his school life, but he can't because he's Spider-Man and he has to learn about the sacrifice that comes with being Spider-Man. And that's kind of what Peter learns in this movie. This is a great learning movie for Peter from Iron Man, is learning that he can't always be the hero and he just needs to stick to being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it's really great. Michael Keaton steals the show as the Vulture. The Vulture is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains that we've gotten in all the movies. He's not necessarily a villain. He's just trying to provide for his family, and he's doing what he thinks he needs to do to accomplish that goal. And he honestly can be kind of scary at times, especially the car scene when he's dropping Peter and Liz off for homecoming, and he's talking to Peter, and he's talking to him saying, if you try and stop me again, I will kill you and kill everyone that loves you and is close to you. And so he can be frightening at times, and I think he's a fantastic villain, and Michael Keaton, like I said, does a fantastic performance. So there's some good, there's nothing's really bad about this movie. It's just one that I'm less interested in than others, but the good stuff is all really good. In sixth place, I have The Amazing Spider-Man. I love this movie. I love it a little bit more actually every single time I watch it, and this is actually one. I think this may be one of the Spider-Man movies that I've seen the most. This was the first Spider-Man movie that I ever saw in theaters. I went and saw it on my birthday back in 2012 when it came out. And I got it on Blu-ray that Christmas, and I watched it over and over and over again. I love this movie. Like I said, I rewatched this movie a ton. It's just more of a fun Spider-Man movie. It's one you don't really have to pay attention to that much. You can just put it on in the background and just have fun with it while you're kind of listening to it or watching it. This is a great origin story for Peter and Andrew Garfield. You can tell that Andrew Garfield loves playing the role of Spider-Man. He does a great job, and he just has fun with it, fun with the role. And so it's great to watch. The Lizard is a pretty mediocre villain, and pretty generic. His big scheme at the end with trying to turn everyone into lizards, never been too crazy about that. It's been kind of weird for me every time. But other than that, I think everything about this movie works, and it's great. Another thing I'll say about The Amazing Spider-Man that I haven't seen a ton of people say is I actually really dig the suit in this movie. The suit that he has for a majority of the movie with the yellow lenses, the narrower red on the front. This might be a hot take, but I think I actually like this suit more than the TASM 2 suit. And the main reason for that is I have a very soft spot for the TASM 1 suit because the Christmas that this movie came out, not only did I get the movie on Blu-ray, but I also got the suit. I got a version of a costume of the TASM 1 suit, and I would wear that thing from the time I got home from school to the time I went to bed. I would wear it. It was close to the only thing I ever wore. The only reason I didn't wear it to school is probably because my parents made me put on actual clothes. But I would wear it so often, and every chance I got, I would put it on, and I would pretend I was Spider-Man. You know, I loved it. So I've always loved the suit in this movie, so I just wanted to mention that real quick. I also love the romance between Peter and Gwen Stacy in this movie. Like I mentioned earlier with TASM 2, their chemistry is really great, and it feels like a believable romance, a believable high school romance. And that's just what makes it work so well for me, is it's believable. You believe that they like each other, and you root for them to get together in these movies, and that's what I love about it. In fifth place, I have Spider-Man 2. A lot of people have this as their favorite Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, and some people even have it as their number one. For me, I love it. There are just other Spider-Man movies I like more, but I think this is a really fantastic sequel. We see Peter struggling to balance his Spider-Man life with his home life and work life. He's gets fired from his job because he's late on a pizza delivery because he has to go be Spider-Man and stop a criminal. And so we see that struggle. Alfred Molina does a fantastic job as Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains in all the movies. I've never been super crazy about the plot line where Peter loses his powers, but when he does get them back, I think it makes that payoff really good. And overall, I think this is a really great sequel. Some days this movie might be above the first one for me, but upon my most recent rewatch, I like the first one just a little bit more. And that brings me into number 4, Spider-Man. This is another Spider-Man movie that I think I've seen the most. One of the Spider-Man movies that I've seen the most out of all of these. I would watch it on a loop as a kid over and over again. I just loved it. It's a great origin story, and it really opened the door to superhero movies and opened the possibilities. Tobey Maguire is a really good Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I've never been a fan of Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson at all. Mary Jane Watson is easily my least favorite love interest in all the Spider-Man movies. I could go on a 20-minute rant about why I hate Mary Jane so much. I'll spare you that in this video, but maybe in another video down the line I'll go deeper into that. But their relationship just doesn't feel believable. And I forgot to mention this, maybe I didn't. I don't know if I mentioned this when I was talking about Spider-Man 3, but their relationship just isn't believable. I don't root for them to end up together because it doesn't feel like they want to end up together. They don't really feel like they want to be in a relationship together. It just feels like the only reason they end up together is because the script says so, because the movie says so. It doesn't feel believable, and it doesn't feel like they actually enjoy it. So I've never liked the romance between Harry and Peter in this movie. So that's my biggest gripe on this movie. That aside, the other great things about this movie is, of course, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. Green Goblin is my favorite Spider-Man villain that we've gotten in all these movies. He does a fantastic job. He's frightening, and honestly, he beats up Spider-Man pretty freaking bad. Like, Spider-Man gets pretty hurt at the end of this movie, because Green Goblin is just beating him up, and yeah, Peter, like, his suit gets ripped, his face gets pretty bloodied up, so Green Goblin is a really great villain in this movie, and I overall just really enjoy this movie. At number 3, I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is some people's favorite Spider-Man movie, and for good reason. It's got fantastic animation that I thought couldn't be topped until Across the Spider-Verse came out. It's got great side characters, including Spider-Man Noir, played by Nicolas Cage, and Spider-Ham, played by John Mulaney. Both do great jobs in their role. You have Spider-Gwen, played by Haley Steinfeld, and Miles Morales himself is just a really great character in this film. I like Kingpin and Prowler as the villains a lot, and Kingpin is another, like, close to top tier Spider-Man villain for me, because he's frightening. Yes, he induces fear, for sure. You fear him as a villain, but you also understand where he's coming from. They tell his backstory in this movie well, and you understand why he's doing what he's doing. So for me, that's always one of the most important things for a villain and for a character, is understanding them, where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing, and telling their backstory in a good way. So that's definitely a thing that I really enjoy. And a lot of people's favorite scene in this movie, and definitely one of my favorite scenes, is the Leap of Faith scene. And it's definitely, the Leap of Faith scene has kind of cemented itself as one of the most popular scenes in an animated movie ever. The thing that makes the Leap of Faith scene so great to me is just the payoff of Miles learning from all of his clumsy mistakes earlier in the movie. Instead of getting nervous and sticking to the building, he's able to let go, breaking the glass along with him, and being able to take that leap of faith. Instead of bouncing off the flagpole, he's able to grab onto it and use it to propel himself upward. So it's just a great scene. What's Up Danger playing in the background will put a smile on my face every single time, and the scene itself just puts a big grin on my face, and I look forward to it every single time I watch this movie. I love this movie. I love the dynamic between Miles and Peter B. Parker. Peter B. Parker teaching Miles how to be Spider-Man and teaching him to take that leap of faith. And so this is a great movie, and I love it every time I watch it. Number 2, I have Spider-Man No Way Home. This movie is the culmination of every Spider-Man fan's wildest dreams. All 3 Spider-Men put on the big screen together. The OG villains from all the other movies put on the big screen. And so you get all the villains, all the Spider-Men, and it is so good. It's great. I think recently it's become quite popular to call this fan service the movie. And from a certain point, I can see where you're coming from, that it is really great for fans of all the movies to see all the villains and all the Spider-Men again. But at the same time, I strongly disagree. I don't think it's just fan service. It feels earned, and it works really well. The Spider-Men don't come in. I mean, we get the villains right at the beginning, but the Spider-Men, they save the biggest reveal of the movie for when you least expect it. Peter is at rock bottom about halfway through the movie. He's just lost Aunt May, and Ned and MJ are worried about him. They're sad. And then Ned opens up a portal, and Andrew Garfield comes in. Then he opens up another portal, and Tobey Maguire comes in. And so it's just a pleasant surprise that puts a smile on your face, and then they're able to comfort Peter, and they understand and relate what he's going through because they lost Uncle Ben, and they teach him that maybe Aunt May didn't die for nothing, and with great power comes great responsibility. It's fantastic. I love it. I love the final battle with the 3 Spider-Men fighting together against all 5 villains, and I also understand that there are a few issues with this movie. I think the setup is a little bit clunky, and there's definitely some issues there with Doctor Strange and the whole spell. I don't know. I think the setup is a little bit lazy, but other than that, I love this movie. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the newest Spider-Man film. I thought the animation couldn't get any better until we got this movie. The way they were able to do different animation styles and textures all within the same scene and have it feel cohesive and have it work is so impressive to me. All of the side characters are fantastic. Spider-Punk is a total scene stealer in this movie, and after seeing it a second time, I think he might be my favorite character in this movie alongside Spider-Gwen. Speaking of, we see Spider-Gwen's backstory fully told in this movie. We see where she's coming from. We see Miles grow as a character. Spider-Man 2099 is a menace and such a great character that I can't wait to see more of. And just overall, I love this movie, and I will single-handedly get Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse to $1 billion at the box office if I have to. I can't wait. 10 months until that movie, and I can't wait. It's almost my number 1, was my number 1 before. So this movie, all of the colors, this movie will have you hooked from beginning to finish, from start to finish. This movie deserves to be seen on the biggest screen possible, and I love it. And yeah. So for the time being, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse comes in at number 1 for me. That is my ranking of the Spider-Man movies. What is your ranking? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm sure you disagreed with a lot of this list, and honestly, I don't care. This is just my opinion. Let me know yours down in the comments. What did you like about my list? What didn't you? And what would you fix about my ranking? Like, just leave your ranking down in the comments. And I have a bunch of other Spider-Man videos planned for this week. Until next time, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on any of my content. It would really mean a lot to me. Share this video with your friends and family, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.